Kia ora. This video is to help you understand your obligations when it comes to disclosing information. When selling a property, it's important to provide potential buyers with as much information about the property as possible. And because you're selling the property on the vendor's behalf, you need to make sure they're happy with the information you disclose. Disclosing defects is a requirement for all licensees and is best practice. The best way to ensure this is by working with the vendor to help them understand the importance of being open and honest, and to guide them through the consequences of non-disclosure. Our research shows that some vendors justify to themselves not sharing information about their property, especially when they're desperate to sell. It can be tempting to not disclose what they should, even if it's minor. Some even wrongfully assume that it's still up to the buyer to find out about defects for themselves. In any case, if there are known problems with the property and the vendor hasn't disclosed them, this could lead to a sale falling through, or worse, a buyer taking legal action against them after settlement. A helpful technique is to ask the vendor what kinds of information they'll want disclosed to them when they purchase their next property. For example, would they want to be told about any previous flooding or evidence of borer? It's a vital conversation to have, so you can include this information in the agency agreement. In some cases, you may even decide to not take on the listing. There are two specific rules in the Code of Conduct regarding the information that must be shared with potential buyers, Rule 10.7 and 6.4. This rule states you must disclose any defects that you know of or should be aware of, like a leaky roof, asbestos, or subsidence. However, this could also include issues with documentation, like defects in the title. These problems must be disclosed in agreement with the vendor. This means you can't give buyers or vendors incorrect or misleading information, and can't withhold information that should by law or in fairness be shared. For example, if there's a development happening in the neighbourhood, or whether there's been a violent crime on the property. You're not required to try and uncover any hidden defects that a vendor hasn't mentioned, or possibly doesn't know about themselves, but you should investigate further with the vendor if you suspect an unknown, hidden, or underlying defect. For example, watermarks on the ceiling that might suggest a leak in the roof. You do have a responsibility to identify possible problems common to an area. For example, the effects of floodplains or coastal erosion areas. There are also certain types of building defects you're expected to be able to identify, such as asbestos textured ceilings or monolithic cladding on a flat roof structure that might suggest weather tightness issues. In other cases, a potential buyer may have found an issue identified in a property inspection report. Try to get as much information as you can from the buyer so you and the vendor can plan your next steps. If you find a problem during the listing, first ask if the vendor knows about the problem or plans to fix it. If not, consider investigating the suspected issue further together. You should also explain to the vendor that you may have to share this information with potential buyers, then outline the vendor's options. Ultimately, try to come to an agreement with the vendor about disclosure. Make a plan of action, document the whole situation, and discuss how to share this information with interested buyers. If you can't agree and the vendor insists that no defect exists, ask them to provide evidence or expert advice to back up their view. You can also discuss the situation with your supervising agent or branch manager, check your agency's disclosure policy, possibly seek legal advice, check out our website, or call us at REA. This may help you decide whether to walk away or keep going with the transaction. Once you and the vendor have agreed to disclose information, you should work with them to figure out how to disclose it to buyers. Some information is best disclosed early in the process, possibly at an open home, and other matters, for example sensitive information, may be best disclosed down the line to serious buyers only, but you must disclose it before an offer is drawn up and submitted. It's wise to document any conversations you have when disclosing information to a buyer. Best practice, used by many agencies, is to supply a standard disclosure pack to potential buyers during the introduction phase. And finally, you must clearly remind buyers it's important for them to seek legal advice. Find out more about the principles of disclosure and how to deal with tricky scenarios like leaky buildings or meth contamination on the REA website. And if you know anyone who might benefit from more info, send them a link. Thanks for watching. This video was brought to you by the Real Estate Authority.